Chris Loder.
Thank you, Sir Gary. It's a pleasure to speak in this debate. I'd like to pay tribute and congratulate my honourable friend and almost neighbour, the member for East Devon, on securing this very important debate. And I'd also just like to declare to the House my interest as a tenant beef farmer's son in my home constituency. Sir Gary, today, whilst I could talk a lot about farming across the board, and particularly beef and sheep farming, today I'd like to focus my remarks on egg production and the effects that we're really starting to see. Some say it's because of avian flu, and I would like to maybe share some other aspects to that debate which may help inform that discussion. Because the egg industry, if we want to call it that, has been going through a period of turbulence for some time. And in my opinion, that is because of the supermarkets controlling the supply chain, totally dominating the market, forcing producers to accept a price of which they cannot afford to produce upon. And it is highlighting that the grocery code adjudicator, which I spoke so strongly in favour of during my maiden speech in the Agriculture Bill in, I think, February 2020, I'm afraid is proving to be totally ineffective. Most of my farmers in West Dorset tell me they don't want to receive government subsidies. They don't want to, but they have to. And why do they have to? Is because more often than not, they are forced into a position where the grocery code adjudicator is not doing its job because it is allowing supermarkets to dominate this field in such a way where they just cannot continue to provide the goods which we all need to consume. And in effect, what is happening is that the government, in my opinion, Sir Gary, is subsidising ultimately supermarket profits, and that has to stop. Now, we all know that egg production costs have risen, energy costs have risen, the war in Ukraine has had clearly an effect on that, so has inflation. But we cannot continue in a situation where there are such strong yield management policies within these large supermarkets that are forcing this situation to occur, because it's not new. The British Retail Consortium, I think, was on the record only a few days ago, and they said that the British Retail Consortium confirmed that some UK supermarkets are putting limits on egg purchases due to shortages largely linked to the avian influenza pandemic. Well, I don't agree with that, Sir Gary. I think it's wrong, and I think they're hiding behind a total failure in their yield management strategies of probably many months, if not longer. In West Dorset, I have a number of producers of eggs. They tell me, Sir Gary, that that the money they get is now so difficult for them. And just to put it into context for you, supermarkets have raised the price of a dozen eggs broadly by 50 pence over the last, I'd say, 6 months. The British Free Range Egg Producers Association say that farmers, the producers, are receiving just 18 pence of that in the light of all the additional production costs of which they are having to bear. And therefore they cannot do things like invest in pullets, that's new young stock, to ensure the future. This has basically resulted in a gradual reduction of egg production of 13%, 13% over the last year alone. That is not due to, solely due to avian influenza. I give way to the honourable gentleman.
Egg producers are making something as well. Now, if they sell their eggs locally to the local smaller shops, they're getting a good price. For instance, £1, an increase to £1.89. So that's an increase that smaller shops have done. But if you sell them to the larger supermarkets, they are hell bent, I feel, Mr. Chairman, in screwing the producers to such an extent that they will no longer be in business. It's the big boys who need to be taken on.
Thank you, Sir Gary. I totally agree with the honourable gentleman. I think his remarks are absolutely right and concur absolutely with my own thoughts. If we think we're having a difficulty today in the market, I can assure the House that in 12 months' time, I'm afraid we're seeing the beginning of a ticking time bomb. And if ever there is a situation that means I think this House has to urge the government to give the grocery code adjudicator the teeth it needs to sort this mess out it is now, because I can assure the House that in less than 12 months' time, we won't be in a situation where we have a reduction of eggs available for sale for consumers. We'll be lucky if we have any eggs on the shelves at all. I would just like to conclude my remarks, Sir Gary.
Just one
Briefly, Sir John.
He's making, as ever, a brilliant speech from the House, but it doesn't just apply to eggs. The Groceries Code adjudicator needs to intervene in respect of horticulture, in respect of cereals, in respect of a whole range of things, and livestock, where supermarkets are, as I said earlier, sorting the food trade. So will he ask this brilliant minister, no one better in the House to do this, to use the powers the government already has to act in favour of farmers and growers?
Thank you, Sir Gary. Yes, I will. The Minister's heard it. I just want to finally say the NFU has called for a DEFRA investigation into the egg supply chain. I think they're right. I think they're a bit late with it, but I think they're right, and I hope the Minister will take that on board. And the Right Honourable Gentleman makes a very fair point. This is not just about eggs. Milk, maybe 18 months ago, was 49p a pint. It's gone up to more than £1 a pint in most shops now. If you ask your dairy farmers, have they received that? No, they haven't. Thank you, Sir Gary.
Mahindra, and you and the final speaker, 5 minutes each, please. Okay.